Hello and welcome. I know a lot of you have been asking for an Android tier list for Nintendo Switch emulators, but considering the scene is practically dead, with several emulators adding more and more placebo options and many new projects showing up with no real purpose, we're doing something different in today's video. We're going to run practical tests to see which drivers actually work best and compare several emulators across 3 different games, to help you figure out what's truly worth using among so many questionable options. Let's start by talking a bit about our testing methodology. As mentioned earlier, we tested 3 games, Bayonetta 3, due to its high performance demand, Super Mario Odyssey, which generally needs to hit near 60 FPS on Android emulators to demonstrate efficient and accurate emulation, and Zelda, Breath of the Wild, which is already considered to run decently well, though still with performance drops in some areas. The initial idea was to test these games on all available emulators, but some options are still highly questionable and may even pose security risks to your device. Others cause extreme overheating and intense thermal throttling. Some projects like Skyline still have too many issues to be fairly compared with more complete Yuzu forks. Now, a quick note about our capture setup. I'm using an external capture device connected to my phone's video output. This means there's no performance loss due to screen recording software. All footage was recorded at the same resolution, in the same areas, and using nearly identical save files, all to keep the testing as fair as possible. Let's begin with the drivers. Right now, there are 3 major publishers, Kimchi, Mr. Purple, and Weebchan. I tested all of them on my device, and for consistency, used the Sudachi emulator since it's a neutral project not tied to the development of the others. The game used for testing was Zelda, Breath of the Wild. Although the latest Kimchi driver has quite a few bugs, using revision 7 or 8, released before the buggy version, ensures good compatibility with most games. As for Mr. Purple's drivers, even though they are extremely optimized for Eden, they may present issues with other emulators. Finally, Weebchan's drivers, at least on my device, had average performance, better than Mr. Purple's drivers, but not as good as Kimchi's drivers. Of course, there are some variables, like the scene being rendered, but I did everything I could to standardize the conditions, same area, same time of day, same location. So based on these tests, we'll be using Kimchi drivers, revision 7 or 8, for all the upcoming tests. About the Eden Vale menu, we won't be tweaking any settings. According to the developers themselves, even options like RAM and VRAM usage can break the game. So it's better to leave them alone. Now let's jump straight into the tests. All performed on a ROG Phone 6 with a Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 and 8GB of RAM. All games were loaded from a USB stick with 550 MB per second read speed. If you enjoy this type of content and want to see more test videos here, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel for future uploads. This was definitely one of the most complex test sessions we've ever done, with 4 Android screens running simultaneously. We'll begin the tests right after a word from our sponsors. If you want to buy original games while saving a lot, check out Instant Gaming, the digital store that sells games for various platforms, such as PC, PlayStation, Xbox, and Nintendo Switch. Get games of all genres with discounts of up to 95%. You'll also find a variety of gift cards and credits for other services. You can pay for your order through your credit card on a website with a 4.7 rating on Trustpilot. You're buying games directly from Instant Gaming, not from other retailers. If you encounter any issues, Instant Gaming offers 24/7 support. And this month, Instant Gaming is offering a great discount on the newly released Monster Hunter Wilds, with up to 51% off, ensuring the lowest historical price for the game. Check out the price comparison with Steam's pricing. What are you waiting for to save? Links in the description. The first test we ran was with Bayonetta 3. Unfortunately, there are no apps on Android that show the average, high, and low FPS, so we had to analyze everything almost manually. Right from the start, at least for this game, we can completely rule out Torzu, which performed far below the competition. Keep in mind that Torzu's main development is for PC, so of course it's going to run into more problems on Android. Overall, Citron maintained the highest FPS for the longest time, followed by Eden, and then Sudachi. It's worth noting that this is a pretty extreme comparison, focused strictly on gameplay performance. Before talking about Breath of the Wild, I need to mention a problem exclusive to Eden. It was the only emulator among all tested that showed fixable graphical issues in this game. Using Eden with our chosen driver, revision 7 of Kimchi, the emulator showed flickering objects during gameplay and some horizontal shadow lines, an issue unique to it. Enabling or disabling LRU or changing any other settings in the Eden Vale menu didn't help at all. The only way to get perfect gameplay on Eden, compared to the others, was by using Mr. Purple's driver. But as we saw earlier, that driver doesn't offer the best performance. With that said, let's move on to the test. Now that you know about Eden's issues, let's do the comparison. At times, I felt Citron performed the best, and at other times, Torza did. So overall, I'd say they're tied for this game. In second place is Sudachi, which didn't perform poorly but rarely went over 30 FPS. Lastly, Eden, due to the driver issues and even with its enhanced FPS method, still couldn't keep up with the competition. As I mentioned earlier, this might be due to the driver, but Kimchi Revision 7 worked fine in all the other forks. I'll leave that up to you to decide. Lastly, we tested Super Mario Odyssey, where the goal is for the emulators to stay as close to 60 FPS as possible, since that's now achievable on most of them. This was by far the hardest test to analyze, but it's clear that from the very first moments, when a lot of shaders are being compiled, Citron doesn't lose as much performance. Torzu, on the other hand, was one of the worst at the beginning. In second place is Eden, which at least for this game didn't have many issues, and in third, Sudachi, which had more drops during gameplay. Before I show my final result, I want to talk about a few other emulators you might be testing and whether or not I recommend them. First, I no longer recommend using the original team's latest version of Yuzu, whether it's the regular build or early access. The reason is that the small improvements made by other teams have already surpassed nearly everything that Yuzu offers, in terms of compatibility, shader loading times, and other enhancements. It was a great project, but today there's no real reason to keep using it. In my testing, I should have included the kenji-nx fork, which is basically a version of Ryujinx for Android. While it seems promising, it's still in its early stages. Some games run well, but the compatibility list is still pretty short. I tried several listed games that didn't even boot. However, in the future, it could become the best Android emulator. I'd recommend kenji-nx only for testing games that don't run on the Yuzu forks. Skyline was the first Switch emulator for Android, but it was abandoned after Nintendo threatened other projects, and the devs gave up. Its compatibility list is very small, many games are buggy or won't run, and it often frustrates users. It also causes excessive heating. At the moment, I don't recommend Skyline. PineEmu, which is a fork of Skyline, I've tested before, and aside from causing severe thermal throttling, it does nothing new beyond what Skyline already did. Some people are even saying it may have hidden malware in the app, so it's better not to use it. I don't recommend PineEmu. As for Strato, I got my hands on a version called Strato PR3, but testing Strato builds always sparks a lot of hate, as there are many people defending the emulator, and accusations of fake content start popping up quickly. Strato hasn't been officially released yet, nor has there been any public testing, and it's supposed to be the official continuation of Skyline. But it's been over 9 months with no new release or demo. I'd recommend Strato if there was anything concrete to test. XNS is a Chinese Switch emulator that does bring some real improvements to emulation, unlike some other forks. However, it has some controversial points, like strange Android permissions and a monetization system where you either buy an expensive GameSir controller for unlimited access or watch ads that are pretty predatory. I don't recommend XNS because you could be exposing your sensitive data. Pavel Barabanov had been improving the latest versions of Yuzu and Yuzui, bringing enhanced compatibility to these older emulators and adding small updates to keep them functional even today. However, Pavel eventually stopped working on his own project and joined the Eden team. I recommend these forks mainly for those looking for something as close as possible to the original projects, or for those who feel that everything added in newer forks is, in some way, just placebo. Lastly, I want to talk a bit about Sumi, as you probably saw in a previous video I made. I actually thought the emulator performed above average, even though it almost fried my device. It got so hot that it caused thermal throttling. In that video, I mentioned I was trying to get in touch with the developer, and I eventually joined the Discord server and managed to ask a few quick questions. That's when the problem started. Everything he said at first was that his emulator was currently better than Eden, but he believed Eden could eventually become the best. So as soon as Eden surpassed his project, he would stop developing his own. After that, I was dragged into a controversy where people took my video out of context claiming I said he was stealing code from Eden, when in reality, I said he might have built Vulkan support from scratch, but I already knew Pikachu had developed that months ago. In the end, I practically had to shove the entire script in his face, since the developer was too lazy to even watch the video. When he finally realized I hadn't said any of that, he asked me to make a video or a post apologizing or issuing a correction. Come on, he accused me first, and now I'm the one who has to apologize. I don't recommend Sumi, mostly because the developer acts extremely immature, and it also seems like they use an FPS counter that purposely shows inflated numbers, not to mention the absurdly high temperatures the device reaches. Now let's focus on what really matters. Across our 3 tests, it was clear that Citron still has the best performance. However, it's an emulator that's unlikely to receive further updates, since development was compromised due to the creator's drama, and now the only ones left on the project are his friends, none of whom seem capable of planning anything new or revolutionary. In second place, we have Sudachi. Even though it has a solid development base, the developer has already stated that there won't be any new updates unless there's something truly relevant to improve compatibility. In third, we placed Eden, mainly because of the issues it had in Breath of the Wild with drivers, while all the other emulators handled it just fine. Eden has only had 2 releases so far and is still in a very early stage, so many are likely wondering whether this team, which I can say is a great team, will be able to build something truly impressive in the future. Lastly, we leave Torzu, which generally had the worst performance. But it's a PC-focused emulator, so the Android version is more of a bonus. The developer might not have strong mobile optimization skills, but on Windows, he's already shown he's capable of great things. In general, I believe emulators like Torzu should focus on their strengths and leave other platforms to dedicated forks. But that's a topic for the next video. You can find the download links for all the projects on AlexIndex's GitHub, which will be linked in the description. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.